Hello and welcome to another exciting Blender tutorial. Today we're going to be making a Lego man in Blender. Let's get started. First thing I'm going to do is in the description there's a link to an image that I'm going to use as a reference. And I'm going to bring that image up and place it into my 3D scene as though I have it as a reference. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to come up here till my little mouse pointer turns into a plus, and I'm going to click and drag to split my view. And then I'm going to come up here to the left where I've got the editor type. I'm going to click this and we're going to switch it to the image editor. Now I'm going to click open and open that image. Okay, so we're going to get started with the basic shape of the head. And one thing we're going to do is we're going to skip the hair because the hair is kind of more of an advanced modeling task. Now we're going to go Shift A, and this will bring up our add menu, and we can go mesh, and let's start with a cylinder. We're probably going to scale this down a little bit on the Z. So I'm going to hit S to scale and then Z to lock it on the Z axis. Now we can just scale it along the Z, and I'll just bring it down a little bit. Just kind of look at this and see. We might adjust this more in a minute. I'm going to go into edit mode by switching from object mode. I can hit tab to do that, or you can come up here and click there. Then I'm going to go to, let's see, we're going to go to edge mode. So I'm going to click on this second option here, or you can hit the number 2 on your keypad. So 1, 2, 3 moves between edge, vertex, and face mode. We're going to go to edge mode, and I want to select this loop of edges right around the top. Now the easiest way to do that is hold down the Alt key and click, and that will select a continuous run of edges. So if you have edges that are on 4-sided faces, Blender can calculate where the next one is, and it calls that a loop. So the Alt key is the loop selection. I am going to hit Control B to bevel. This is going to be our first tool that we're going to use. And beveling is really cool. When you hit Control B, you go into this slide mode basically. And as you slide your mouse around, you're going to get different amounts of bevel. But what's super cool about this is if you roll your mouse wheel, it's going to add more cuts, and it's going to make it more and more of a rounded shape. So we can just do a bunch of these guys here, and then let's see, commit here like this. So we've got this nice curved top, which mimics the curve shape you get on a Lego character's head. So I'm going to grab edge mode again with number 2, hold down Alt and grab that loop, Control B to bevel. And you can see it keeps the same number of edges that we had before. So there we go, it looks pretty good. I can look at this dead on by clicking on the X or on the Y, and that will switch things into what's called orthographic mode, which is basically where things are really, really flat. So there's no depth, and that'll give you a really good sense of the shape. So you can see it's a bit easier to see. It's a bit too wide here. So I'm going to hit A to select all, and then S to scale, but I don't want to scale on the Z. I just want to scale on the X and the Y. I could just scale on the Y to get the right shape, but if you notice, if I pop out, it's squishing the whole thing, which we don't want. So if we want to scale on 2 axes and not all 3 with the S tool, what you can do is hit S to enter scale mode, and then you can hit Shift and then hit the direction you don't want. So Z is the one I don't want. So I'm going to turn off my Z scaling, and now I can adjust this so that it looks correct. Now the next thing we do is we're going to create the top. So I'm going to go to face mode, and I'll select this top one, and I'm going to bring it in a little bit first. I'm going to hit I to inset. Just come in a touch like this. And that's the next tool you can use, insetting. It basically like extrudes a face in on itself. We're going to hit E again, and automatically it's going to lock us onto the Z. And we're just going to bring it up a little bit. We're going to do a tiny bevel on this edge, so Control B, and just go a little bit. Probably don't need that many cuts, so I'm going to roll down my mouse wheel. This one in edge mode, and again, Control B. Now we need to do the neck, so we'll go into edit mode again and go to face mode. Click this bottom face, and this one I'm going to keep the large size because you see the neck base is larger than the top bit. So hit E and we'll come down. Now I'm going to go to edge mode, and I will do a little bevel here as well. Now I'm going to right click and we're going to shade smooth, and that will shade our entire mesh smooth. Down here we're getting a little bit of a weird result, and that's because we don't have a bevel on this one as well, so we might as well just throw one on there. I'm actually going to bring this head up a bit, and I'm going to go Shift A, and we're going to create a cube. I'm going to thin him up, so SX to scale it on the X. And then I'm going to go into edit mode, and I'm going to face mode, and I need to bring in the bring in his shoulders so that they're just a little bit wider than the head. So if I look at this just dead on here, I can actually just bring this up so we can really see it clearly. And I'll just select this face, 3 on my number keypad, and that automatically pops me into this orthographic view, just like clicking on the X. It's another way of getting there. I'm going to S and Y to scale on the Y. I'm going to bring it down just so it's a little bit wider than the head. And I'll SY a little bit more and grab Z as well. So I'm going to inset, go in, and then E and come down. In order to get the feet right, the feet have a specific shape. I actually have another image here that I can show you. You can see here, if you just search victortemplates.com Lego Man, you should see this, but the legs are straight at the back, and then they have this like cylindrical shape here, and it just kind of sits inside this base only by a little bit. So I'm going to get out of edit mode and I'll create a new object. So I'll go Shift A, cylinder, and I'm going to rotate it 90 degrees on the x-axis. So rotate, so hit R, we're now in rotation mode. Then I'm going to lock it onto X, so now we're just rotating on X. And I'm going to type 90 and then return, and that locks us in. Now what I'm going to do is scale this down, and I'm going to look at this by hitting 1 on my number keypad to jump to the side view, and I'm just going to line it up with the width of the belt. Now I'm going to grab on the Y and we're going to come over. Now the legs line up pretty much flush with the belt. So if we just move along the Y and line this up right here. There we go. Now it needs to be, I'm going to go into edit mode and grab this face, and I'm going to bring it, I'll just bring it all the way across actually. So we'll just use this as a starting point. I'm going to create the sort of center section here for the legs where they connect and rotate. So I want to have, that needs to be right in the middle of this leg cylinder piece, okay? So I'm going to use a new tool. It's called the Loop Cut tool. Now remember before we held down Alt and we selected an edge and it selected all the edges in a continuous loop. We can actually add loops into geometry wherever we want. So I'm going to hit Control R. This activates edge loop mode. Now in this mode, you can kind of move your mouse around to decide where you want to create that edge loop. And I'll pop out actually of 3D view, or out of the orthographic view, so you can see it a bit better. So you can see how it's creating this circle around the shape. But notice it doesn't do it around this way. And that's because these caps, these ends, are not a four-sided face. It's got lots of sides. As many little, faceted edges as we have in this cylinder are the number of edges of this face. So there's lots of edges. So Blender doesn't know which way to go. It doesn't know what to connect it to. So it just stops. And it can't really figure that out for any kind of face unless it's a four-sided face. So for only four-sided faces did this loop cut work. And you can see we've got four-sided faces going all around this way. And so that's how Blender is able to connect those lines up and make sense of it. Now, when you're using loop cut, you can roll your mouse wheel to get multiple cuts, but we're just going to go with one. And you notice that it doesn't move, it sort of stays static. And that's because first you're deciding how many cuts you want and in what direction. So we're going to click, and that changes the mode. Now, see, I've got both my hands off, I've clicked and I've let go. But now if I move my mouse around, it's sliding. So this is the edge slide mode. So at first it makes the cut and then it enters edge slide. And this is where you can place it wherever you want. But we want ours right in the middle. And you can see I've moved it off. I've bumped my mouse. I'm off to the side now. Okay, but that's not a problem. Because as long as I don't click, it won't put the cut here. If I hit escape, it will put the cut back in the middle. So think about it this way. There's two phases to this. There's the cut phase, which once you finish that and you enter the slide phase, if you don't want to do any sliding, you can hit escape to exit that phase without committing anything. So if I hit escape, you can see it pops back to the middle, right? And so it's just done the first step. It didn't do the slide step. It just skipped the slide step. So there's also more controls if you ever want with any of these things. Before you click or away off the tool onto something else or enter another command, you always have this little drop down right here that hides. And this will give you extra tools and extra things that you can play with that specific tool. But notice once I click away, this will disappear. So if I click, now that option is gone. We've committed the cut, and that's the way it is. And there's no way to go back unless you undo. So just bear that in mind while you're editing. Okay, so why do we have a cut in the middle? We need sort of a little chunk here. And well, what I'm going to do is use a bevel to split that chunk out to the size that I want. So what I'm going to do is go to edge mode, hold down Alt and click. So just like we did before. So now we've reselected that loop. Now I can hit Control B to bevel. And we're not on an edge that's like, curving in somewhere, right? So when we use bevel in this kind of a scenario, it just ends up making a bunch of cuts and like subdividing it wherever it is. So I'm going to roll my mouse wheel to reduce the number of cuts until there are no cuts, right? We just have basically taking one edge and splitting it into two. And now I can move this around until it looks to be roughly the right size of that center joint. And I'll go with something like this, I think. Great. So now I've got my center joint. Now there is a little bit of a gap between these. You can see there's like a little bevel in how these fit together. And we'll take care of that in a moment. But first, let's figure out how we're going to do the leg. So what we want is a flush straight from this back section here, going straight down, right? And this bit, we want to have a little bit of a curve, okay? So it looks to be, it's not half, it's probably right about to here, I think. So we want to select this face, and I'm just holding down Shift, and I'm clicking each of these just like so until I get up to here. And I will grab, do I want to grab that one? I don't think I want to grab this one. I'm just going to stop there. That way it'll be flush with that edge. Okay. So now what I can do is I can, we can go down. I'm going to hit E to extrude, and we can come straight down. When I hit E, it starts to move, but notice it's moving off to the side now. It's not moving straight down. And that's because when you first use the extrude tool, it's going to automatically be in a mode where it's moving, kind of like the slide mode with loop cut, where it's moving it along the direction that all the faces that you have selected are pointing. And roughly the average direction of all these faces, they're pointing kind of off in this diagonal, but I don't want that, right? So I can hit escape again, just like before, so we leave that mode, but these faces are still active and they're still extruded. So even though they're in the exact same place as the faces we selected, if I hit G to grab, move my mouse around, you can see that they're moving off of those faces. So what I want to do now, I'm no longer in the extrude tool at all, and I'm just going to hit G and Z, and now we'll move down on the Z. And that's because I've got my global transform orientations. That's the default, and that's what we're set to. We haven't changed this. When you're doing that extrude tool, what it does is it goes to normal, which is another word for the direction of face is pointing. So anyways, we can bring this down, and there's no like, and now I want this to be flat, right? Because this is what's going to be the base of the foot, basically. So to flatten this out, what I can do is hit S to scale. And now you can see if I scale on the Z, so Z, we're going to lock to Z, and I start scaling down. The closer we get to 0, the flatter it gets. And so that's a great trick for flattening out things. So if we hit S to scale and then 0, it will scale it down so that that whole section is now flat. All right, now we're going to create the little foot section here. So the step here for the foot. So I'm going to do my Control R to create a loop cut. And now you can see I'm going to go around this way. So I'm going to click to commit. But now look, as I slide, you can see how that thing flattens out. So it's trying to take the shape of the nearest edge, which is really cool. So I'm just going to make one cut, and I want it to be roughly around here, but I don't want it to be curved like that. So I'm going to hit S, Z, 0. And again, it will scale to 0 on the Z. Now I might GZ to grab and bring it up a little bit to make this foot a bit bigger. And now I'm going to go to face mode with 3 and hit E. And again, it's moving in that slide mode, but it's pointing in the direction that the face is pointing, which is the direction we want to go. So we don't have to hit escape and hit G or do anything like that. We can just slide this out a little bit. Now the feet tend to be quite stumpy, so quite short. I might look at this from the side. Sometimes when you have a face like this, where it's got so many edges, it can really mess things up and make for some weird geometry. So I'll show you how to clean this up just so you know what you're doing. So I'm going to hit X to delete and click faces. That will get rid of that face. Then if I hold down Alt, I can select this loop. And then what I can do is I can hit E to extrude, and then I'll hit escape to leave the slide mode because I don't want to move it around. I just want to scale it. So I'm going to hit S to scale. This is just like an inset, more or less. And I'll just bring this down a little ways. And I could join all these points up in the middle, but that might create a bit of a pinch. So I'm going to go a little ways in like this and then hit F3 to bring up my search panel. And this allows me to search for any command that I've got access to. And I'm going to look for something called grid fill. And there it is, space grid fill. So I'm going to click that, and that will fill this space. And you can use these tools down here and again in the pop-up to adjust things and try different modes out. You can actually bring this foot down. I'm going to go to object mode, and I'm going to grab Z and bring it down because the real Lego intersects just a little bit. Like, right, now let's do the other leg. Now, when you've got something like this, right, where you've basically done everything that needs to be on one side, and you want to duplicate it on the other side, there's a couple ways you can duplicate it. One way is to create a cut right down the middle, like this with the loop cut tool, and then hit escape to exit slide mode. And then if you go to vertex mode and select everything on one side, we can actually delete those vertexes and use a modifier called the mirror modifier, and that will mirror all of our geometry over. So let's have a look at how that might work. Now, first thing to do is I want to get rid of everything on one side. Okay, so I'm going to delete all of these guys. So I'm going to select them like this, right? And hit X to delete. I'm going to delete vertices. But oh, look, didn't get rid of everything. What's going on? Well, it only got rid of the front-facing vertices, right? Didn't get rid of the back ones. So that's because when I did my box selection, it didn't select anything back here. And that's a really important thing to know about. If I come over here, there's an option called toggle X-ray. I'm going to click on that. Now watch, if I do select the same verts that we had there, if I pop out 3D mode, you can see it's now selected everything. So X-ray mode is what you want to be activating if you want to select stuff, even the stuff that's sort of occluded or behind objects that you're working on. So now if I click to delete those vertices, it will go away. Perfect. All right, let's add the mirror modifier tool and see what happens next. So I'm going to go to the modifiers tab, back in object mode for this leg. I'm going to click add modifier and I'm going to search for the mirror. And there it is. All right, so we've got a mirror, but it's looking a bit weird. Let's move the axis to Y and see if that does anything. Nope. All right, let's try Z. All right, so Z looks like it's where we want it to be, but it's not quite working. What's going on? Well, one thing that's happening is we've got this rotation of 90 degrees on this cylinder that we originally started with. So that's why when I think it should be kind of mirroring along the X, I guess, it's not letting me. I have to do it via the Z. It's also not kind of using the middle of our world as the center point. It's using this orange dot you can see on the object. Now this orange dot is the origin. It's the origin of the object. Every object has an origin, and an origin is just a position in 3D space for the entire object. And you can put that origin wherever you want. It's also the place from which it will pivot. So if I rotate, you can see it's going to rotate from there, whereas this object is going to rotate from down here. So let's position the pivot in a better spot. So I'm going to go into edit mode, and I'm going to hold down Alt and select this loop right here, because I want it to pivot right from the middle of the body right here. So with these guys selected, I'm going to go Shift S to bring up my cursor menu, and I'm going to snap my cursor to selected. That will put the 3D cursor, which is this guy, this red and white little outline thing, right here in between the average position of all the verts that I had selected. Now I can go out of object mode, and we can use this 3D cursor to now set the origin. It's one of the options in the origin menu. So if I go up to Object, Set Origin, and I go Origin to 3D Cursor, it will put the origin of the object here, and now the mirror modifier will flip from that point. So that's what the object looks like, and then with the mirror modifier, we can turn that on. Now we can also change this so it wasn't Z by applying these transforms, but we're not going to worry about that right now. Now, what we can do is actually just apply this. We don't need to keep this around. So I'm going to click this little drop down arrow and click apply, and it will apply the mirror modifier. All right, cool, making great progress. Now, what we're going to do is we are going to create the little bevel divot that we have here. We're going to separate these pieces out. So first thing I want to do is I'm going to go into X-ray mode, and then I'm going to look at this thing straight on, head on, and I'll grab everything for the first leg, and I'll hit P, separate by selection, and then I'll grab this leg, grab it all, P, separate by selection. Now we've got 3 parts. So, all right, so now what I can do is we can go in here to edit mode. I can alt click to grab this whole group, and alt click shift, hold down shift to select multiple things. I'll go to transparent view so we can see. I'm going to hit E to extrude, and then S to scale in. And I don't want to scale on the Y, so I'm going to go Shift Y, so it just goes on the X and the Z. And then I will select the first group, and we're going to do a grid fill. And then I'll select the second group, and we're going to do a grid fill. You can see that the F3 menu, remember that was what we had selected. So, okay, now what we can do is hold down Alt and grab this outer edge, and Shift Alt, grab that outer edge, and hit Control B to bevel. And we can just do a tiny bevel, just like that. Great. Now we can go to edit mode here, and we can grab this edge and hit E and S, go in, and then F3, grid fill. And now what I can do is I can take these legs and let's add the bevel modifier to them to actually add bevels procedurally. So I'm going to click on bevel, and that will add the bevel modifier. And I'm going to take the segments up, something like 5 or 6, and that will give me lots of bevels along these edges. And now I can adjust the size here as well by bringing this down. I'm holding down Shift to make it even smaller, my adjustments. Now I'm going to right click, and I'm going to click Shade Smooth, and that will shade this guy smooth. Now he looks really cool. And I'll do the same for this, shade smooth. And what I want to do is copy the modifier from this to that. So I can open this up and click copy to selected with both selected. And that will bring it over to here with all the same values. Now I can right click, shade smooth. Fantastic. All right, now let's continue. I'm going to go up to the body and we're going to add a bevel modifier to this as well. In fact, I'll just use the same one. So again, I'll shift select and copy to selected. And then right click, shade smooth. Now he's looking really cool. All right, great. Now we just need to do the arm. So I'm going to come up here and I want to put the arm kind of right up here in the middle. So I'm going to shift right click and that will put my 3D cursor, it basically projects it onto that surface. Now I'm going to go shift A. And let's think about what shape we're going to need for this. So I'm going to go shift A, mesh, and cylinder. Now with this cylinder, I'm going to rotate it and scale it down roughly until it looks like it's kind of popping out of the arm. Actually, I might just come over here to the side and we're going to do a X rotation of 90. I've got a lot of other rotations, which I don't want. I'm just going to zero all those out so that it's nice and clean. I'll grab it down a little bit and bring it out a little bit just until I get to there, I think. Pretty cool. All right, let's go into edit mode. And I'm going to look at this straight on. And I'm going to go to X-ray mode and just grab Y and bring these guys in a little bit. Now I'm going to hit E and I'm going to come out and I'm going to rotate and grab Z and scale. It also needs to go back, right? So let me just show you the profile shape. This is what it looks like here. So it goes back and then it has a bend to it. So let's make sure we get that right here. I'll look at this from the side and I'm going to actually scale it up a little bit. And where's the front? Okay, so we're going to come back. I'll just G to grab. And we can do this really simply at first. Sometimes it's best to define a shape simply and then figure out how you can fill out the rest of it. Now I want to kind of rotate along the direction that these points are facing, so along the direction of the arm. So I'm going to switch this from global. We're going to go to normal. And now if I rotate on Z, you can see it's rotating kind of, it's just in the direction of all these faces, which is really useful and helpful. All right, so I'm going to hit E, and then I'm going to grab it and bring it down and rotate a little bit. Rotate Z to try and keep those lines straight. And I'll scale it down some because it gets a little bit smaller for the arm. And then I want to flatten it out. So let's, now what we can do is we can grab this loop that we have up here. Just make sure things look pretty good. And we can bevel it. So I can hit Control B to bevel. And you can see it's going to kind of naturally round it out. But I don't want to go too far because I just want to have that nice elbow shape. And that will round out that shape as well. Cool. All right, let's come down here to the end. We're going to grab this face. We're going to X and delete that face. And then we're going to grab this loop here. So I'm going to go to edge mode with 2. Alt click that, hit E, and then escape, and then S to scale. Take all this, and let's see if we can get the bevel modifier to work well on it. I'm going to bring this up like that. Shift click the leg and copy to selected. All right, so it's creating a little bit of some weird results because we have this limit method set to 30 degrees in the angle. If I increase that a little bit, it should encompass all the bits we want. Cool. You can spend more time on this to kind of smooth out this elbow or get this to feel just right, but for now I think this is pretty good for what we're aiming to do. And what I'm going to do now is do the hand. So the hand is basically a cylinder and another cylinder on top of it. Or actually, no, it's more of a box. So let's come right here and let's place, let's just right click, shift right click to project our 3D cursor. And let's go for a mesh cylinder and let's scale it down, rotate on the X 90 degrees, rotate Z. So, I'm still on normal mode. I need to switch back to global so that it behaves the way I expect. I'll just line this up right here. It's a little bit bigger than the thickness of the hand. Grab X, we're going to come back with this. All right, cool. Bring it down just a little bit. Let's go into edit mode and let's select the face here and delete that face. And the same with this one. And let's go to edge mode, select that edge. And let's hit E to extrude and S to scale. We're going to come in for the thickness of the hand. Okay, like that. And now what we want to do is delete the bits that we don't want. So I'm going to delete, go to face mode. I can hold down Alt and it will select everything that's connected there, that loop of faces. So I'm going to hold down Shift and Alt and just click here along this edge to grab all of these guys. And let's see, is that going to look good? I think so. So we're going to X and delete faces. Now if we go to vertex mode and then shift click these four, you can hit F to fill, and that will fill in those guys with a brand new polygon. Cool. Now what we can do is fill in these groups here. So I'm going to Alt click like that to grab all this. And then I'm going to go to edge mode and I'm going to deselect this edge and this ledge. And these two loops, basically, we can bridge together. So I'm going to hit F3 and type in bridge edge loops, and that will connect those guys up. Awesome. All right. And I think we can also copy our bevel modifier to this and right click, shade smooth, and we've got a really cool plastic hand. Now let's do the bit that goes up. So I'm going to edit mode and I will go to face mode and let's select maybe these two. No, we need more than that. It's pretty thick. Grab all of those and I'm going to hit, actually I'm going to hit I to inset because we're going to go in a little bit and then scale X to push that in a little bit more and then E. And we're just going to go straight up like this. And that should be good. And now what we can do is we can rotate this and fit that in. And we just need to make that a little bit smaller. So I'm going to Control plus and scale and shift. I'm going to switch this to normal because I've rotated this. So Shift Z on the normal. Scale, Shift Z. That looks good. Now we need to get these guys over here. So what we can do is just grab both of these and we can hit Shift D to duplicate. And then we can S to scale and then type in S to scale, Y to lock it on the Y, and then -1. And that will flip it. We can bring it over like this. I'm going to come down here and turn off Scene World so I can get one of the built-in HDRIs. Look at him head on, and I'm going to go to the Material tab, and I'll just click the head, click New. All right, now I'm going to select all the pieces, and then click this little drop-down, Copy Material to select it. That'll put this material on everybody. Now, what we're going to do is, let's see, we're going to put this, I'm going to go into edit mode, and I'm going to hit A to select all, and I'm going to hit U. And actually what I'll do is I'll just grab this, and I'll hit U, and I'll project from view. And what U does is it's UV unwrapping. It's taking, if I come over here to the UV editor, and go back in edit mode, there's the UV that we just unwrapped, okay? If I can unwrap the whole thing, let's do the whole thing. So I'm going to just select all the faces with A, and then U and unwrap. There we go. And then this particular one, I'm going to go U project from view. And I'm going to hit A to select this guy over here and just scale it right up. And then I'm going to load in this image. So now what I can do is I can line up roughly. Now I can select all the other pieces and I can hit L to select linked. And I can select each of them and scale them right down and just pick another part here that's got that orange color. So make it real small. I'll just split my view one more time. Show you what this is actually doing. We can come over here and we can drag out from base color. So this is the material that we've got assigned here. The default principled BSDF. I'm going to go search and we're going to add in image texture. And we've already got this guy in our scene. So if I click this, I can select emit and I can take the color and put it into the base color. And just to be clear, we're going to take this vector and we can put it into the UV, which is what we're using. I can select the UV map from the drop down there. You can have multiple UV maps in an object. So, but you can see that that worked really nice. It put his shirt right on front. So let's do that for each of these guys. Let's continue to look head on, select all U, and I'm going to project from view. And then I can take this guy and line it up with his head. Z. Actually, we are going to need another cut for this to work because I don't want the hair in there. So I might Control R, create another cut, and just pop it right there. And then if I select all, you've got this, I've got a cut here as well for my UVs. So now I can grab all of these guys and I can scale them right down. Sorry, all this. Scale it right down and just stick it somewhere in here. And then line it up. And then we can grab the other bits that aren't facing us. So what I can do with this is, I probably don't want that shine either because that's a fake shine. That's fine. We'll keep it. That's cool. I can box select, and that will select only the visible faces because I don't have X-ray turned on. And now that's kind of cool with the back. Maybe I should keep it. Well, I can go up here to select and invert. And now I've got all the other sides. And now I can just scale them down to 0 and stick that in the orange somewhere. And there you have it, our own little Lego man. I hope you really enjoyed this tutorial and learned a lot about modeling and how it works in Blender and how you can model anything you want. Don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel, and check out the Patreon where you can get access to the full uncut version of this tutorial. And you can also get it on YouTube if you join at the All Access Pass level there as well. And you can find the full uncut version of all my tutorials, which have a lot of extra information, extra detail. So if that's something you're interested in, go check that out over there. Likewise, you can get this project file if you join at the 2nd tier and up on Patreon. Thanks to everyone who supports this channel already on Patreon and on YouTube by joining, and also for you for watching right to the end of the video. Can't thank you enough. Have a fantastic week. I will catch you later. See you.